and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Edge. I'm Chris Bishop. When you think about lawyers, you think about massive offices full of long tables and polished glass. You think of heavy fees per hour, you think of professionals who don't have to struggle too much financially. Now this week we have a lawyer who has tried to start out a legal practice without all of the luxuries of the above. Yvonne Wakefield, who founded her firm Caviar Legal from home. It's an interesting story, I can tell you. And you're here in the studio with us. First and foremost, what drove you to be a lawyer?
The legal career always appealed to me as a child. I think I have a strong sense of justice and a sense of wanting to do the right thing. I was always the one, between myself and my two sisters that was approaching the parents to argue for, increase in pocket money or something like that. And yeah, it was just a natural sort of inclination. So the choice of moving into law was very easy for me, and the choice of studying law was very easy for me.
And you studied and you served at the bar?
Yes.
And then you worked, so how many years from when you started to study law until you finished your stint at one of the large legal firms in South Africa? How long was that, you think, that period?
So it was a 3-year undergrad degree, a 2-year postgrad degree. Part of that was on exchange at Antwerp University, which was very exciting. Did a diploma in international law there. And then went on and did articles at one of South Africa's top firms, which I really enjoyed. Then moved to the bar, where I practiced for a few years before I decided to take some time off to have some kids. Spent some time at home having kids, and then when time came to think about going back to the bar, I sort of stumbled across this idea of trying to do things differently in the legal space.
What was that moment when you realised maybe perhaps you should be on your own?
It was an interesting story. My father-in-law, who's also a lawyer, came over for dinner one evening and he showed me an article about somebody in the States that was offering legal services using a different type of business model, and I thought it was extremely interesting. And I did a little bit of research and I realized that actually there was a growing trend towards businesses offering legal services using different types of models. So I looked into it a little bit further, and it really resonated with me because I myself, but I know that a lot of lawyers have quite a conscience about the fees that they have to charge. They have to charge those fees because their overheads are so high. Law firms are extremely expensive businesses to run. So lawyers end up having to charge those fees for their work, which makes it really difficult. So once I'd sort of done a little bit of research into this growing trend internationally, I noticed that there was nobody doing this work locally. And at the same time, I happened to have a number of good friends and colleagues who I had come through the ranks with in law and who'd done quite well in law. They were directors at some of the top firms in the country, looking for alternative working arrangements and that type of thing. And at the same time, I had a number of friends doing business, and those friends were often not using lawyers. And when I asked them why they weren't using lawyers, they had a story about having briefed lawyers and having been saddled with a bill that they couldn't really shoulder. So they've decided to just, do the work themselves or sweep it under the carpet. So I saw the need for it, and I saw the opportunity and went for it. So
if I get this right, you're cutting down on those overheads by being very slimline. You started this practice from your home. Mm-hmm. A lot of lawyers and a lot of cynics would say to you, well, surely aren't you building up to the point where you do have a big office with polished glass and long tables and all the rest of it? Is that not a cynical view?
It may be the cynical view, but I think clients out there are wisening up to that slowly, and they're starting to realize that when they go and see their attorneys at the big firms, they look at all of the sort of infrastructure, and they realize that actually they're paying for it. Mm. So when I looked at it carefully, I thought, well, how can we structure things? How can we build a business model to address the issues that both practitioners and the clients have with traditional legal practice? So I built the model quite carefully, and essentially what it is it's a virtual practice. It's not a legal practice in the sense that it's not a law firm. We're a consultancy business. So if I can just draw the distinction there, there's certain types of work that is called reserved legal work. It includes litigation, conveyancing work. That kind of work has to be done by lawyers practicing as such at law firms. The rest of the work, mostly commercial work, can be done by in-house lawyers. So obviously you'll have your banks and your corporates. They are big enough and have enough funding to hire in-house lawyers. Many small businesses don't have that kind of funding and they can't hire in-house lawyers. So what we've done is we've established a network of former big firm attorneys that all work for themselves. They work either from home or from small businesses that they have, or from small offices that they have set up. And we make them available to our clients to do work for them on a consultancy basis. So essentially we're offering our clients a huge team of in-house lawyers that they don't have to hire and they can use on an ad hoc basis.
What do you think about legal fees overall? I mean, you're kind of slightly to the side of the mainstream now. I mean, a lot of people I know, they complain the fact they have to pay a large fee for a lawyer writing a letter. They have to pay a large fee for an hour's consultation. That's across the board. I mean, what's your view on that?
It's something that I've always battled with, but I understand how those fees get to be how as high as they are, and the reason why I understand that is I've seen what it takes to run the big firms. They've got huge buildings, they've got teams of support staff. The overheads are very high. So what we've decided to do is cut down on all the overheads. The consultants all work on their own, and the workers, we use technology to do the work remotely, and we're finding that we're managing to charge our clients about between a third and a half of what they'd pay for the same lawyer at a large firm.
I mean, do you find also in the business, I mean, I know it works in journalism sometimes, people think that if they're only paying less than the rest, that there must be some kind of difference in the service that they're getting. I don't know, it's like a psychological thing.
I think there is that, but I think at the same time, as I said, a lot of clients are realizing that a lot of what they're paying is not actually for the legal service, it's for the infrastructure, which they don't necessarily need all of the time. So, and we're quite careful about quality. We only really take lawyers who have reached director or senior associate level at South Africa's top 5-6 law firms. And that's how we try to keep the quality very high. So essentially we're trying to offer our clients, a big firm lawyer at, half the price.
One question I have to ask you, why is it, you say that this is a pioneering thing in this country, why is it more people aren't doing it if it's doable?
Well, it is certainly doable. We are the first to do this in South Africa. I'm sure we'll have competitors soon, and I think competition is always good for business in general. I think nobody else has sort of caught onto the international trend and noticed that there's opportunity here.
So, and what are the difficulties with it? I mean, it does sound, from what you're telling me, it sounds like a great idea, but there's always problems with every good entrepreneurial idea, as we know on this program. What are the difficulties you're getting?
It's interesting. I think on the business side, I have found, each of the attorneys that we are dealing with, we've now got about 38 of them, they're fairly senior lawyers. They've come through the ranks of the big firms. They're senior, they work in a certain way, and I find it takes quite a bit of management to make sure that they're happy, to make sure that the fit with the clients is right. So that takes quite a lot of work, and it's challenging at times. I've also found that, generally the kinds of lawyers that we are attracting are lawyers that want a balance in life. They're people either with family commitments or sporting commitments that, that makes them require slightly more flexible working hours. The downside of that is that they keep on going on holiday. So, but I take that as a good sign. I want them, when they're doing work for us, to be fresh and rested.
But you've mentioned this thing about overheads, which I'm sure a lot of people out there would agree with you. Well, wouldn't it be better if legal fees came down with fewer overheads? But some of the big law firms, they can be fearsome with their execution sometimes. The way that they deliver, the way that they check, the way that they give service to the clients, because of the massive support they've got and support staff. I mean, don't you think there's still merit in that?
There's absolutely merit in that. The big firms are fantastic environments for lawyers to work in, and they offer a very high quality of service. We completely respect that, and I have very close relationships with a lot of top lawyers at the big firms, and I think they're fantastic environments for people who want that type of environment. For a lot of lawyers, they really enjoy their work, but they'd like some kind of flexibility and autonomy over the kind of work that they take on and how much work they take on.
In your line of business, or in your opinion as a legal professional, where are the big sort of growth areas in litigation and legal representation at the moment?
Litigation is one of the areas of reserved work. So because we're not a firm, we're a legal consultancy business. We don't offer any litigation services. We are working on quite interestingly, we're working on a commercial mediation team that we can put together to try and resolve commercial disputes on a sort of cost-effective and a much quicker basis than litigation. But unfortunately, I can't comment on litigation issues. Not something we're involved in.
Do you think this business sort of law that you're doing, is that a big growth area because of what's happening?
It's very
in the
big.
economy?
Yes, and we're finding that there's a lot of most of our clients. Well, I suppose the bulk of our work is commercial M&A type work, private equity type work. We're finding that there's an enormous interest in investments both locally and throughout the rest of Africa. So we're doing quite a lot of that kind of work. And the briefs are rolling in. What's nice about it is that we've got a strong team of lawyers with very strong credentials and very strong backgrounds. So they're equipped to take on almost any kind of commercial matter. And there's a huge demand for it.
And how do you see this new idea going? I mean, what's the difficulty in the fact that you don't want to go to a massive 6-floor company here, say in Santon? You're saying that's not the point. How do you stop growing to that level? That's the question.
Obviously as we grow, we're going to have to get more sort of support and that type of thing. I think one of the challenges is making sure that we meet regularly and that we get together, because I think one of the things that practitioners miss when they go out on their own is that they can't go and knock on the tax specialist's door down the passage and ask for tax advice on an issue that they're dealing with, or employment law advice or something like that. So it's important to me that we have opportunity for everybody to get together. The nice thing is we have a network now of a large number of lawyers, and they're all available to support each other. So if, say, a commercial lawyer is working on a matter where there is an employment law issue that comes up, they know that they can have the support of the employment lawyer, or if a tax issue comes up, they can ask a tax lawyer.
And finally,
so
do you think the idea will catch on? Do you think there'll be many, many more Yvonne Wakefields around doing your thing?
I think so. I hope so. I think the market is forcing people to be creative about the way that they decide to offer legal services. The traditional law firm model is difficult to make a profit out of because of the way that it's sort of set up. And I think there'll certainly be other players in the space fairly soon.